Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge Review. Design improved. Premium design made better with a water-resistant construction. From the surface, it might not appear as though there are remarkable changes to the S7 Edge's design, but there are in fact several subtle refinements that carefully address some of the shortcomings with last year's design. First and foremost, the same premium design is present once again here, boasting that attractive metal and glass package that ceremoniously elevated Samsung to a totally new level last year. Our particular unit, a gold platinum Verizon variant, shimmers in a distinctive gold hue when it's tilted in the sunlight. However, it's still something that attracts nasty baddies such as fingerprints and smudges, so a lot of care and wiping is necessary in keeping it clean. Of course, the same slick aesthetics are achieved thanks in part to how its dual curved edges just makes it look great near and far. The most notable change here with the S7 Edge is its size, one that finds itself in middle of the S6 Edge and S6 Edge Plus. For a 5.5-incher, though, Samsung's engineers continue to trim as much of the fat off the phone, almost giving off the illusion that it's a phone with a smaller sized screen. In fact, its 76.09% screen-to-body ratio is recognizable when it's placed alongside the iPhone 6s Plus, which boasts a 5.5-inch screen as well, but looks considerably larger due to its lower screen-to-body ratio of 67.91%. In comparison with something like last year's LG G4 and its 72.46% screen-to-body ratio, the S7 Edge's compactness isn't all that impressive, but it still comes across as a remarkably narrow and easy-to-handle device considering the screen size. Believe us when we say that the S7 Edge doesn't look like your typical 5.5-incher. And it's quite revealing when we hold the phone in our hand, as we are able to grasp the entire width of the phone without having the feeling of stretching our hand more to compensate its size, such as the case with the iPhone 6s Plus. Sure, people with smaller sized hands will feel it's still quite a lie in size, but we're digging how they're able to keep its frame within the bounds of reasonable. Displayed it's a bigger screen, with those signature dual curved edges that give it one slick look. By now, we're accustomed to Samsung's expertise when it comes to displays. Each successive device thus far has been equipped with a better display. For the S7 Edge, they've obviously fashioned a larger, 5.5-inch 1440x2560 Super AMOLED display, putting its size right between the two previous Edge phones. While it seems like we're reaching that threshold, especially when Quad HD resolution is the standard amongst high-end phones, we have to look at some of the other aspects of the screen to distinguish its superiority. Most notably, when set to basic screen mode, this AMOLED display exhibits colors that are very close to the standard sRGB color space, which is always a good thing. And, being AMOLED, contrast and brightness are remarkably preserved when viewing the display at an angle. The same doesn't go for color accuracy, though, as things get dramatically shifted depending on the angle you're viewing the screen from. The only minor thing to change here with the display is its peak luminance and color temperature. Specifically, the S6 Edge managed to produce a potent 553 nit luminance, but the S7 Edge's potency has lessened to 493 nits. On paper, the discrepancy might be thought of as grand, but in reality, the S7 Edge's screen is still more than visible on the sunniest of days, thanks in part to how it cranks up the contrast when it's on automatic brightness. As for its color temperature, it's actually an improvement at 6586 K, besting its predecessor's mark of 6799 K. A color temperature close to 6500 K means that color balance is spot on. Overall, there's very little to complain about the S7 Edge's display. When we look at it, the same amount of iridescence put out by it continues to be a major drawing factor. And when you combine its dual curved nature, it only helps to enhance its allure in the space, wherein it's still a rare sighting for any phone to feature a curved screen. System performance: the Snapdragon 820 screens at a ferocious rate, so there are plenty of smooth moves with this. Last year's Galaxy line was a unified bunch that exclusively harnessed Samsung's homemade Exynos chips to power its devices. This year, however, they've reverted back to a familiar strategy that splits up the load. For us-bound Galaxy S7 Edge devices, like the Verizon one in our possession, they're being powered by Qualcomm's latest and greatest in the Snapdragon 820. As for everyone else, some international variants of the S7 will have the Exynos 8890, while others will again utilize the Snapdragon. Samsung promises equal performance between the two. Either way, the Galaxy S7 Edge is complemented with a whopping 4GB of RAM, the dual-channel variety to ensure things operate smoothly. And that's exactly what we've been seeing thus far with the Snapdragon 820-powered S7 Edge, producing all the buttery goodness speeds you'd expect from a top-tier smartphone. Normal everyday operations performed with a tight response, so there has yet to be any instance of delay. Synthetic benchmarks indicate that the Snapdragon 820 is at the top of its game, reaching new heights in several tests. There's no compromise with its graphics processing prowess either, seeing that the Adreno 530 GPU shows incredible finesse in dealing with all of today's graphics-demanding titles. Its strong real-world performance is indicative of its superiority, but for those who are still skeptical about battery drain, especially for a device with a sizable Quad HD screen and blazing processing hardware, its support of the Vulkan API allows for high-performance graphics processing with lower battery consumption. As it currently stands, Samsung is only offering a single storage option for the Galaxy S7 Edge, 32GB to be exact. Although that's more than a generous amount, it still will drink that no other options are being made available at launch. Still, it should be noted that the reintroduction of the micro slot adds that level of utility that went missing with last year's Galaxy S6 line. Camera: it's a true low-light master. Oh man, this is where things get really juicy for the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. In true fashion, the Galaxy line has always been relevant when it comes to camera performance, so there's no trading away from that distinguished fact. While it's certainly no surprise to us that a camera's performance isn't indicative solely on how many pixels are crammed into it, many people are led to believe otherwise, crazy as it may seem. Based on its track record, you'd think that Samsung would be reluctant to change that trend, since each successive device since the beginning kept on upping the amount of megapixels. That, though, changes here with the S7 Edge. Battery: one of the few areas where more work is needed. Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge review: we understand that a bigger battery is present here with the Galaxy S7 Edge, since it's a bigger sized phone to start off. In comparison to its predecessor, which sported a 2600 mAh battery cell, the S7 Edge is greeted to a monster-sized 3600 mAh one. We'll applaud to that reality, right? Well, not so fast. The phone powers us through the usual one day of normal use in our experience thus far, which is an average result for most things nowadays. What's more, its performance in our custom battery benchmark test is also about average, resulting with an on-screen time of 7 hours and 18 minutes, it's almost a full hour down from its predecessor's tally. On one hand, we're concerned by all of this, but it would have been worse if its real-world performance reflected such a drop. Luckily, it doesn't. And that's what matters more to us. While it might lean towards the S7 Edge requiring frequent charging, especially for power users, Samsung has successfully improved the handset's charging efficiency. Requiring only 99 minutes to get back to full capacity, that's actually more efficient than the S6 Edge, so even for a short period, it'll give the phone a solid chunk of charge. That's something good if you can't spare something like 15 or 30 minutes. And lastly, the S7 Edge continues to be understood as the Swiss Army knife of smartphones because it continues to offer the convenience of wireless charging, something you won't find with many of its competitors. Conclusion: pricing wasn't particularly on the side of the Galaxy S6 Edge last year, mainly because for a phone that matched the S6 on paper, its added $100 premium cost on top of the S6 didn't seem justifiable. Not surprisingly, though, the S7 Edge's pricing follows the same strategy by being accompanied with an additional $100 cost over what most of the domestic carriers will be selling the S7 for. That tally makes the S7 Edge roughly $800 wherever you look, which by itself is an undeniably exorbitant cost. Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge review: thankfully there's more reasoning behind the $100 separation between the two devices, as the S7 Edge features a larger size, and therefore, a bigger screen, and larger battery. The added new functions of the Edge UX also play into its higher cost, something that now feels a bit more complete, as opposed to the novelty that last year's phone seemed to exude. So, the more we think about the $100 added cost that's needed to be put toward picking up the S7 Edge over the S7, the more we realize that it's far more forgiving than last year's reasoning. Aesthetically, the S7 Edge shines with the same drawing factor that its predecessor managed to muster up. It's a worthy successor in almost every facet, as Samsung has managed to address most of the shortcomings of the old model, while also reintroducing expandable storage and a water-resistant construction. When we look at the total package, the incentives brought on by the S7 Edge all make sense, despite the costly investment that's needed in buying it. If money is no concern to you, or you simply want to stay on the bleeding edge of technology right now, the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge is a noteworthy phone rich in both the experience and performance, with a price point that's justified against its sibling. Rarely do we have a phone that packs so much cutting-edge technology into one single device.